Good afternoon to all of you. So the first basic, the first question that all of you must be having in your minds is, what is analytics? To put it in very simple terms, analytics is taking decisions based on data. That sort of summarizes what it really means. So generally, we have always been, very often most of our decisions are based on our gut feel or based on subjective opinions or on subjective opinions rather. But analytics is all about looking at data about what has happened and taking decisions about that. Why is analytics so important today? Well, the emphasis all through, in fact, in the preceding years, even in the institutes of higher learning, HR has always been taught without the number crunching part of it. So we've always been dwelling on the soft aspects of HR, like how do you things like emotional intelligence or conflict management and topics like that. But as all of you are most of you must be aware that the trend today is also people from the field of HR also need to be part of the business development. In other words, play an active part in the decision making. So the expectation today is the HR manager has to have the skills to look at data and take decisions based on that. The important thing now is the most important quality to learn analytics is that we need to be very receptive to the ideas of the concepts of statistics and mathematics, and it should not be viewed as something which is very theoretical. Of course, I do agree that depends a great deal on the instructor and the faculty also. But what the point I'm trying to make is that we need to be ready to dirty our hands, so as to say, and really dive into the subject and learn stuff. So my program essentially focuses on concepts, applications, and I make use of Excel as the primary tool in the entire program. And I make use of a lot of real world data sets, which I'll show you as we go along. One of my favorite quotes is this one by the well-known science fiction writer H.G. Wells, which said many decades back that statistical thinking will one day be as necessary for efficient citizenship as the ability to read and write. Okay. And that's coming true. The very fact that so many people these days, apart from the 3 R's, that is reading, writing, and arithmetic, people are looking at statistics, data analysis, and topics like that, only proves what a visionary H.G. Wells was, and how true he was in what he predicted. There are three broad categories of analytics. One is, of course, your statistical analysis or analytics. Then you have predictive analytics, and the last is optimization. Statistical analytics is the statistical part is why is this happening? It looks at the data, analyzes the data, and tells you what's happening. Predictive analytics is topics like regression, where we analyze the data, and once you analyze the data, it gives you an equation. Based on that equation, you can predict what will happen in the future. For example, I can run a predictive analytics model for, say, have historical data for the amount of money we've invested in training, and also the type of results that we've got in terms of employee efficiency or employee output. So running that analytics model, I can find out are the inputs really significant? Okay, so I could have a model where there could be two independent variables and one dependent variable. So the independent variables, for example, in a marketing model, it could be something like advertising, the amount I spend on advertising, and the number of retail stores that I have. So once I run the regression model, I can find out the relationship between the advertising expenditure, the number of retail stores, and my dependent variable, which could be my profitability. And then it also tells me which of the two independent variables are significant. So this predictive analytics, in fact, I'll demonstrate a couple of simple examples after this. Predictive analytics is all about predicting and telling what lies in the future. The last category is optimization, which is essentially about what is the best that we can do. So one of the best examples of optimization is your linear programming, for example. We have got a lot of constraints in life. Typically, the constraints are time, money, and resources. So given the limited amount of time, money, and resources, what is the optimal that I can produce as an organization? So that comes typically under the topic of linear programming and topics like that. So, but the program that we are planning to have is going to focus primarily on the statistical part and the predictive analytics part, not so much on the optimization, obviously, because of time constraints. Why analytics? Today, those of employees who are strong in analytics have a strong competitive advantage. See, a lot of other things in industry can be easily copied, but technical knowledge or what they call as expert power in organizational behavior, that is something which is very difficult to copy. So organizations which are very strong in analytics have a huge advantage over other organizations. What is the characteristics of analytics oriented companies? Top managers embrace data analysis as essential for survival. For example, the best example that I can think of, and I'm sure all of you are familiar with, is also Amazon. For example, the last CEO, Jeff Bezos, was the topper in his class at Princeton in computer science and electrical engineering. So he's been a person who's actually understood the subject very well. Then the second example that I can think of is Eugene Kaspersky from Kaspersky Labs. And many of you are aware that the Kaspersky Internet Security is one of the most leading products today in the world. Now, Eugene Kaspersky himself has a very strong background in cryptography and applied mathematics. So they are all people who sort of grown through the ranks, dirtying their hands in the core technical work. So that's a typical feature of companies that are strong in analytics. The third point is about continuous learning. See, very often the big mistake that we do is we see training as an expenditure and not as an investment. So when very often people ask me, Arvind, how are you going to measure the effectiveness of your training? See, knowledge is something that, you can measure it also. There are ways of measuring it. You have a test at the beginning and then one test at the end. The same test is administered after the training and you see whether there is any significant difference in scores. That's fine. The other thing is this equipping the participants with certain skills and knowledge which they can always use later on. I think it was Albert Einstein who said that everything that is important cannot be measured, and everything that can be measured need not necessarily be important. So we need to look at training as an investment and not an expenditure. So that's a cultural issue that we need to bring about in our organization. And of course, the most important, as the last point says, is that the employees become strong in data analysis skills, which they can always use at some point in time. The classic example is, why do we read the newspaper in the morning? Reading the newspaper is one of the most depressing things today. But why do we read it? Well, it gives you a certain perspective. You need to be aware of what's happening in the world around you. So that the same goes for training very often. It sort of widens the perspective of the participant. The biggest thing in HR today is we have a lot of transactional data. Okay, so we generate a lot of data, but unfortunately, the data very often in many organizations is lying dormant, waiting for the intelligence to be mined. So after this program that's where the students will learn a lot of skills. For example, let me give a few examples and then I'll demonstrate something in Excel and let's see how it goes after that. The first example is about current data patterns. For example, have you really segmented your workforce to identify the really critical people, the people who are doing important jobs? And the third category are people who can be shuffled across functions. Okay. So looking at some statistical skills, it's very much possible to do that. The second is a very interesting concept called profiling. Now, how many of us have really analyzed the high achievers in our organization and really identified their traits? For example, looking at the people who've done well in your organization and seeing what are the common factors to all these people. Are all the top performers, do they all come from a particular institute? Or do they have certain personality traits common to all of them? Or are they all people who have actually studied a particular branch of particular subject as part of their undergraduation or graduation, things like that. In fact, in the US, they did a study and they found that most of the people who are good leaders had taken a subject in the humanities in their undergraduate years. So that was an interesting finding there. So this is profiling your people is something. So points like this are also discussed in the program, the non-mathematical things like this. The next thing which I typically do when I teach research analysis is, how do you, now we all offer rewards to employees. Now, is it always based on what the employees want, or is it based on what the organization wants to offer? For example, are the rewards of a firm, do employees, are all of them always given stock options? Because some of them may prefer, say, a 5-day paid vacation to a hill station. So that's where the importance of employee surveys comes, and important to tune everything to the needs of employees. The next example is one about analyzing recruitment methods. Now let's take a simple example. I've got 3 groups of people. The first group, we've got the performance appraisal scores of those who are recruited through a walk-in and administered a written test. The second group, we've got the performance appraisal scores of those who are recruited based on a written test and an interview. And the third group is, or the third data set is the performance appraisal scores of those who were recruited based only on a referral, and then they had to undergo an interview. So essentially here I've got 3 columns of data of employees belonging to these 3 different groups. But how do I know whether there is any significant difference between these 3 groups? So there is a technique in statistics called ANOVA, analysis of variance. So if students are aware of that, they will be able to quickly analyze this and find out really whether there is any significant difference between these 3 different groups. Okay. Analysis of placement agencies. We all have placement. We all hire the services of placement agencies. At least that was very much the case prior to the pandemic. So, but did we really bother to really find out using analytical techniques as to whether the candidates whom we've got from the 3 placements consultants whom we've hired, are they all equally effective, or is one placement consultant not doing as well as the other 2? If the one person is significantly lower, not doing as well as the other 2, then there's no point in me paying money and using his services. So those are things again that. Coming to analytics, my predictive analytics. In regression, for example, I can actually run regression and tell you which are the key determinants of that impact my employee satisfaction. Okay, I can actually run a regression. So I discuss these things in the class. So we look at, for example, I could gather data based, one could be experience, the other is the number of years of education. So I run the regression and I actually find out which one is, whether there is any significance. So let me actually show this to you in Excel. So I'll just switch the screen now to Excel. Let me give you here I've got, you can see on the screen, 3 columns of data. The first column is, we've got data for how many employees. Let us count the number of rows. I think it's data for 95 employees. Okay, this is actually real data taken from an institute, but I've sort of sanitized the data. So the first column is education. Okay, so you can see here the number of years of education of the first candidate, 12 years of education, number of years of experience, no experience to start with, and the salary. This was in dollars. Okay, Similarly, if you have data for the next candidate and so on. So now what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to run a regression, multiple regression on the screen, and we'll see the output. In very simple terms, I'll explain to you what the output tells. So we run the data analysis option in regression. So regression, it asks for my dependent variable. So my dependent variable is salary. That's what I want to predict salary based on, and my input variables are the other two. They are the independent variables. So I select education and experience. I check labels, and then let me display the output on the top of the screen here. So I'll display the output in cell F1. Yeah, here I get the regression output. I'll just magnify it a little. So I'll explain to you briefly what this output tells me. The first thing is the significance F. So I'm not going to get into all the technical details, but I tell you what the output. So if this value is typically less than 5%, here it is 1.97 into 10 to the power of minus 5, which is less than 5%, which means that both the independent variables that we are looking at over here, that is number of years of education and experience, are determinants of salary. That means salary is being impacted by the number of years of education of the employee and the experience, which is actually being shown. The significance of the two independent variables are shown by these two p values, what we call as p values. Again, if it is less than 5%, it is very significant. If it is higher than that, we don't normally treat it as very significant. The next, okay, so that's a typically important. That's one example of a multiple regression model. So similarly, like this, I can look at absenteeism. So my next example will be something related to, let's see how we can use simple regression for looking at absenteeism. So I'll open, the simple regression file. Yeah, this is a very simple example. I've got data here. How many rows do we have? We've got, okay, so 10 rows. We've got data for 10 employees. The first variable is the distance of the employee's house from office in miles or kilometers. And the next column is the number of days of unauthorized leave he's taken. Okay, let's take it as leave rather than unauthorized leave. Let me make it as leave. Okay, so now I want to find out, is there a relationship between the distance of the employee's house from office and the number of days of leave that he takes? So I'm going to run a simple regression here, data.
Sir,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to stop you. I think the screen is not visible. The absenteeism screen is not visible. To stop share and again reshare.
Well, we need to stop share, is it? Okay.
And again reshare that.
Again reshare. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, is it visible now?
Yep, now it is visible. I hope everybody is able to see it.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So I'll just explain the screen again. Here we've got data for 10 employees, just hypothetical data. The first column tells you the distance of the employee's house from office, okay, in miles or kilometers or whatever. And the second column tells you the number of days of leave he's taken in 1 year, okay. It could be. So I want to run a simple regression to find out whether the distance of an employee's house, see in India, the distance travel is a very significant thing in an organization. So let us see what the regression tells us. So it's more an illustration. So my dependent variable is what I want to predict. And my independent variable is the distance. And my output, I will put it here. Yeah. So here, once again, the most important thing in this regression is it gives me an equation, okay? So essentially the equation here is, it tells me that the average number of days of leave, so average days of leave is equal to, so you can say it is 0.59 into distance of home from office plus 3.38. So that's the first important output of any regression equation. Okay. And the most important thing here is this p-value. In fact, the p-value here is more important rather than the equation. This p-value, once again, is compared with 5%. And all of you can see that 0.003 is less than 5%. Okay. So this tells me that the distance of the employee's house from office is a significant factor in that determines how much leave he's taking. Okay. So this is a very simple example of how you can use simple regression. So that's the examples like these. There are many examples in the program, but these are just some simple examples I wanted to take today. So I'll once again stop the sharing and get back to the PowerPoint slide. Yeah, Radhika, is it visible now?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead, sir.
Okay.
You can do it in the slideshow mode, sir. Right now we are seeing the slides, normal slides.
Yeah, slide. So I'll be doing it in the slideshow.
Sure.
Yeah. So other thing is correlation. Talking of simple regression, and a very interesting example is, a lot of people, we all conduct entrance tests or interviews at the time of admission of employees. But how many of us really bother to find out whether there is any correlation between an employee's entrance exam score and his performance after 1 year after joining the organization? So once again, using the principles of simple regression, I can find out whether there is any correlation. And the problem is, if there is no correlation, it indicates two potential problems that the organization is facing. One is, we are probably not, if the people who are scoring high in the entrance test are scoring low at the time of appraisal, then it could indicate that there is some problem in the appraisal process. Okay. Or it could also mean that your entrance test needs to have more aspects to it, which sort of evaluate all aspects of the candidate. If there is a very strong positive correlation, which means that people who do well in the entrance test are also doing well at the end of the first year appraisal score, then that's good news for the organization. You really don't have anything to worry about. The nightmarish situation would be when, people are doing well and they're doing well in the entrance test and not doing well at the end of the first year. So, and research has shown that actually your academic achievements is very significant only during the first 3-4 years of employment. After that, it's more the person's experience and his other attitudes that take over. In fact, in many organizations, at least in the Western world, they are, for example, in companies like Google, almost 15 to 20% are not even graduates. So they're very open to trying out people who are really have not gone through the real mainstream education, but many people you can develop a lot of skills even by your own self-study. So are we really looking at those sort of options? So that's another important question that we all need to ask ourselves. And then there's another topic that I do, which is called confidence intervals. Confidence intervals is a very interesting topic in statistics, which the essence of confidence intervals is, suppose I want to find out, let me give you a simple example. I want to introduce a new health and wellness program in the organization. But before I do that, I want to find out what is the average amount of time that employees devote to exercise and fitness in a day, okay, or in a day or in a week. Now, how do I do that? I've got 1,000 employees in the organization, and do I need to spend time talking to all 1,000 employees in the organization? That's going to be very, very time consuming. Thankfully, this topic of confidence intervals comes to my rescue. What confidence intervals helps me to do is, it helps me talk to a sample of people. So my sample size could be 100 or 150. There are mathematical methods to arrive at that. Assuming the sample size is 150, I can speak to those 150 people, find out how many minutes they exercise per week, put those 150 values in an Excel file, find out the average value. And based on that average value, I can estimate what is the average value for all the 1,000 employees in the organization. So that is the power of confidence intervals. You are able to really get a picture of the entire population by interviewing only a sample. So these are the sort of things I typically cover in the program. And I make use of real data sets. So
thank you very much everyone for joining in, and thank you Arvind sir for your time.